Hey, what's going on, internet? Josh Noel from SonduckFilm. So I think I got a cool tutorial today, and what we'll be creating is basically a particle reveal where we can animate it along any path that we want, and then also we'll be taking a look at working with different particles. So right now I guess I'm using these polygons, like these triangle sort of things, and we'll be able to switch that up to other sort of options. So I think it's a really cool tutorial, and plus we don't need any plugins. I am using Optical Flares here, but I will show you how you can make this work with a basic lens flare as well. So I think it's a really cool tutorial, so let's go ahead and let's get started. So basically in our composition here, I already have our text set up and a background with a gradient ramp already available. And please keep in mind, you can download these project files in the description, and of course you may use this for your YouTube channel, or if you're doing any client work, I don't really care. You may use this for whatever you're working on, but really the point is I want to show you guys how you can make this work also in 3D space, and how you can create your own custom particle reveals. So let's go ahead and let's start off by creating, well, first of all, we have our text. Let's go ahead and pre-compose that by going up to Layer, Pre-Compose. And we can call this, text layer. And, this is just for, we can just quickly change the text a little bit later. So that's why we want to pre-compose that. Or if you want to drop in like a logo or whatever you're trying to do, you can use this composition to replace whatever you want to do in the future. So let's go ahead and go up to Layer, New, Null Object. And we're going to use the Null Object to create our path. So basically, I'm going to go up to the pen tool. And then let me zoom out here, and we'll go ahead and kind of click a point here. So we're going to go ahead and create the path that you want the particles to animate on. So we'll go up here, maybe we'll click a point here, and then, maybe we'll kind of hold down Shift, and we'll drag out a nice little curve like this, and we'll kind of curve it over here, and then we'll say, please go straight through our text like this, and then we can tell it to continue to move forward. So now we have basically, just a mask, not a path right now. So what we'll do is we'll hit M on our keyboard with the null layer selected, and we will copy the mask path, okay? And then let's go ahead and delete the mask since we don't need it, and then hit P on our keyboard to bring up the position. And let's go ahead and select the position and paste our null object path. And I believe I did say copy. I can't remember if I said copy the mask path. So be sure to copy and paste the mask path into the position. And then, of course, this is not exactly where we want it to be, so let's go ahead and make sure all the keyframes are selected. And under the Y position here, kind of go ahead and drag that down by a little bit. So now the particles will go right through. And let me go ahead and let's keep that. Let's go ahead and move this to the beginning here. And then let's go ahead and stretch the last particle out a little bit. And as you can see, all the all the keyframes start to stretch out as well. So the animation is now a little bit longer, and we can easily control the timing of the animation. So now with that created, let's go ahead and create a new solid by going to Layer, New, Solid, and we'll call this one Flare. And I want to make the background black, and that's good. So I'll show you how to do the optical flares first, and then I'll show you quickly how to do the basic lens flare effect, so you don't need to use optical flares. But for those of you who do have optical flares, please use this over the lens flare. I think it's a little bit better. But anyway, let's go here into the options, and I'll go ahead and clear all. And I'm just going to use a glow, and I can go to the global color and change the color to whatever color I want. And that's fine. And then we'll click OK. So basically what I'm going to do is, first I'm going to set the source to 3D. So if we do want to do any 3D animation a little bit later, that's going to be good. Go ahead and change the flicker to increase the speed and the amount by a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this up, and then I'm going to alt-click the position XY, and actually go to the null object here and hit P on our keyboard to bring up position. Then go to our expression here, grab the pick whip, and parent it to the position. And then I'm also going to make our null object a 3D layer, and alt-click the position Z and parent that right to the Z position on the null object. So now, if we take a look at this, boom, we have this animating here. And one thing I forgot to do for the null object was to center the anchor point. So what I can do is select the null object and go up to Layer, Transform, Center Anchor Point, and Layer Content. And since I forgot to do that earlier, I created a keyframe right here, and all I have to do is just delete it. So that'll kind of fix everything up for us. So now we have this lens flare animating in the center of our null object. So let's go ahead and, for those of you who don't have optical flares, let's go ahead and turn this off for now. And let's go up to Effect, Generate Lens Flare. Alright, and I like the 35 prime. Actually, I think the 105 prime. I like the 105. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and lower the flare brightness all the way down to like maybe 15% or so. And then let's go ahead and basically alt-click the flare center. And let's parent this to the position of the null object. So now this will follow. And then if we want to go ahead and, manipulate the color of the lens flare here, what we can do is go to Effect, Color Correction, Curves, and go to the red channel. Maybe we'll bring that up all the way. Go to the green channel, and maybe we'll bring that down. So now I'm getting closer to the pink that I want. It's not exact, but this is how you can change the color. And then what we can do is alt-click the flare brightness, and we can type in wiggle, open parenthesis, 2, 30, close parenthesis. So kind of just like that right there. So now we'll have this animate all the way through. And what we need to do is set the transfer mode of this flare layer. And if you don't see the transfer mode, you can click toggle switches and modes and set it to add. So now we'll have this going for us. So that's how you can do a basic lens flare. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that off for now and just stick with the optical flares. But that's if you don't have optical flares. So now let's go ahead and get into the real meat of this tutorial, and that is the particles. And what we do is create a new solid, and we'll call it particles. And that's all fine. So then let's go ahead and go to Effect, Simulation, CC Particle World. And let me go ahead and turn off some of these grids and guides. And the only reason why I use Particle World over the particle systems is because I like having the option to be able to set this into 3D space. So if I want to do any 3D animation, I'm going to be ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the physics, and I'm going to set the velocity to like maybe 0, and then the gravity to 0 as well. So we have all of our particles right there, and maybe let's go ahead and open up the producer, and let's set the radius x to 0.01 and the radius z to 0.01, and set the radius y just to 0. So we need to parent the position x, y, and z to the null object. So basically, I have these expressions here, and we can't just pick whip them. So we have to paste these expressions in there to make them work. So these will be in the description of this video for you to copy and paste. So what I'll do is I'll alt-click the position X, and I'll just paste that expression in here. And I need to set the null 1 to null 2 because this is a null object 2. And we can't just pick whip it because, it's not going to work like that. I had to look this up online. So just use this expression. And so that was position X. The second expression is going to be for the Y position. And then once again, we'll go ahead and set that to the proper null object. So yours will probably just be null 1, so you won't have to do this. And then you see it's starting to animate a little bit. And then for the last one, we'll grab the Z position, and we'll alt-click that in the position Z and set that to null 2, or whatever null that you're working with. So now we have this animation for our particles. So now we can kind of continue to work with our particles and start figuring out what the best settings are. So what I can do is go to like the particle here, and we can set it to like faded sphere, which will give you some cool particles. Of course we need to adjust the size, stuff like that. But let's go ahead and mess with maybe the tri polygon, because that's the one I was working with. And we can change the color of this to like, maybe like my hex code, like a pink color, and that's the birth color. And then let's go into the death color, maybe set that to like maybe a purple color. So maybe what we'll do is increase the birth size just by a little bit, and maybe increase the death size just by a touch as well. And then maybe what we can do is increase the birth rate, and maybe lower the longevity, which is basically you can say how long this the tail is going to be. And maybe we'll increase the size variation to 100%. So now we kind of have this interesting particle for us going on for us here. Maybe we'll increase the velocity just by a little bit, maybe like 0.15 or something. So they'll kind of the particles will kind of disperse after we go, as the tails start to disperse. And then, like I said, we can go ahead and change this to like maybe, a motion polygon. We can change it to a cube, which can also be really interesting. You might need to adjust, the birth size and the depth size of whatever particles you're trying to do. If you want to use, like a faded sphere, we might want to increase the birth rate like crazy. And then even make the particles smaller. And then maybe even increase them like way more than that. So there's a lot to think about and, of course, experiment with when you're working with these type of particle effects. But I'm going to keep it with our tri-polygon. So things are looking pretty cool right now for us. And as you can see, it kind of animates off for us because we have our null object. So what we're going to do now, since we have our particles set up, I'm going to go ahead and select our text layer. And we want our, let's go to like right there. It's right in the middle there. And let's go ahead and type in into our effects and presets linear wipe. And there's actually a preset under transition wipes called linear wipe. And we're just going to go ahead and apply that to our text layer. And that'll already have things keyframed for us. So I'll hit U on our keyboard to bring up the keyframes. And let's see, let's go ahead and move this back keyframe over a little bit. So now, and let's continue, maybe select both keyframes and move them over just by a touch. All right, so cool. And then we can increase the feather. So yeah, so that's looking really cool. So the last thing what we can do is, since we have all this set up in 3D space, well, let's go ahead and make the text layer a 3D layer. And if you're using optical flares, you don't need to make the lens flare layer a 3D layer. But if you're using the basic built-in lens flare, you need to make this layer a 3D layer. The only issue with this, it won't look incredibly good in a 3D space because it's not really a 3D effect like optical flares is. So just keep that in mind. But if you're just using optical flares, do not make the flare layer a 3D layer. That would be bad, and we don't need to make the particle layer a 3D layer as well. So let's go ahead and go up to Layer, New, Camera, and I'm going to set the 50mm preset, and click OK. And then what we can do is hit P on our keyboard to bring up the position, and we can click the stopwatch, and we can move forward in time to like 5 seconds. Click the add a keyframe, and then then we can go to our camera tools here, and we can maybe go to like the beginning here. We can like have this like rotate a little bit. So now, and see the things kind of rotate a little bit for us, and maybe I'll go to the last keyframe here. So you have a lot to work with, and we are basically in 3D space. So it's kind of really up to you. What you want to do with this. I kind of just created this, just it took us a couple of minutes or a couple of seconds to set this up because we have everything set up in 3D space. So I think it's really awesome. And of course, make sure to enable motion blur for, your particles. Let's see, particles, and that's really about it. But, maybe we'll go ahead and set the motion blur for our text layer as well. And if you still go ahead and take a quick look at the, lens flare effect real fast. And, as you can see here, it's not absolutely perfect. And one thing we need to do is make sure the flare layer is a 3D layer. And yeah, so if you're using the basic lens flare effect, make sure that's a 3D layer. So, it's pretty decent. It's not as good as optical flares. Of course, you might want to increase the brightness by a little bit, but it does work if that's what you have. So, and after a quick render, this is what we have, and it looks really cool. We have this set up in 3D space, and it's really interesting. So if you guys have any questions, please drop a comment down below. And if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing for more tutorials in After Effects. And if the video has been helpful, please drop a like. It helps me out tremendously. And guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and hopefully I'll see you soon.